Well, thanks everyone for joining and welcome to these first sessions of the webinar series we are promoting from the NenuPhar project. I would like to say that I'm really happy to see so many people joining, even though we are in the middle of summer. So it's great to have all of you here. Thank you for registering, thank you for coming, and especially thank you for the two sister projects that are collaborating in this session today, because it's not only NenuPhar promoting, but also the GREENHOOD and the SEACURE project that are co-hosting this session and that will participate in the agenda. The topic we will be discussing today will be around governance in nutrient management and recycling. I will be starting with a brief introduction about the NenuPhar projects, and then we will have training part, which will be presented by my colleague Chava on basics on governance, concepts and implications for nutrient management. We have then a success case on governance in a company from Hungary, waste management, which is Proficom. And then the three projects that are participating in the session, SECURE, GREENHOOD, and NenuPhar, will present our learnings in governance in the different regions that we are addressing. So before going into the governance contents of the webinar, I would like to tell you some words about the NenuPhar project in case you're not familiar with it, where NenuPhar stands for New Governance Models to Enhance Nutrient Pollution Handling and Nutrients Recycling. It's a European project. It's funded by the Horizon Europe program. It started in November 2023 and it will last only for 9 more months until April 2027. And we are working in this project on new governance solutions and technologies to address the recovery of nitrogen and phosphorus coming from three main waste streams in Europe, which are manure, sewage sludge, and dairy wastewater. We have 4 main pillars in this project. So we have built all our work on the waste mapping from these key waste streams in Europe. We have made a huge work to estimate nitrogen and phosphorus emissions coming from these waste streams and to study the behavior of these emissions in soil application when they are used as organic fertilizers. We have made a legislative analysis and we are promoting new governance models together with the stakeholders in the regions we are addressing. We have also worked in innovative economic and financial instruments and in circular business models methodologies that can be applied in this kind of topics. And of course, the technological part, which is a set of technologies I will tell you a bit about to treat manure, sludge, and dairy wastewater and recover the nutrients they have. So the map of our project, you can see the geographical reach of NenuPhar in this slide, in which we have 23 partners that are distributed across 10 countries in Europe. Well, this is a huge geographical scope, which is absolutely necessary in this kind of projects, because working on nutrients management, on the technologies available, on the different situations, they differ a lot across different regions in Europe, across different river basins, the sea where we are draining our waters, the way these nutrient charges are being managed differs a lot. And it was fundamental for us to have a perspective in Europe to work this properly. So here is the reason for our project. I've mentioned already the 3 waste streams that we are working with in NenuPhar, so animal manure, sewage, sludge, dairy wastewaters. These waste streams together represent a huge environmental challenge in Europe, and we have the capacity to transform an environmental challenge to valuable resources that we can take advantage of. We have in NenuPhar, about the more technological part, let's say, and the geographical scope, we are addressing 3 river basins in Europe with 4 demo sites. On the first part, you will see that we are working on the Ebro River Basin in Spain. This Ebro River Basin drains to the Mediterranean Sea. Is a region that has a huge charge of animal manures, and we are working on technologies of ammonia stripping system to recover the nutrients out of this stream. On the other hand, we are working in Latvia and Lithuania, which represent the Lielup River Basin, which drains to the Baltic Sea. Here is not that much on technology, but on processes for nutrient recovery. We are working on composting of sewage sludge and to assess the recovery of nutrients when they are used as organic fertilizer that can be applied in soils. And then we are also working at Danube River Basin together with Hungarian and Slovakian partners that are working on 2 different technologies to recover nutrients. In Hungary, a membrane system with pre-oxidation to recover nutrients from the wastewater of dairy industries and then clean their water so these waters can be reused in the process. And then we are also working on nature-based solutions for algae growth out of these nutrient-rich waste streams. We also have two follower demo sites that are not much developing technologies, but assessing the possibility of implement all these solutions in this insular system in Bornholm, Denmark, and in Cyprus. So studying the possibilities, the feasibility of replicating all these technologies in the regions that are also suffering from similar nutrient shortages. It's not only about technology, of course. So beyond technology, we are also working on all these governance tools and stakeholders schemes for collaboration on assessing all the regulatory situation that will bring us to policy recommendation, novel business models, methodologies, and all these capacity building activities that we are, that brought us together today, actually. So as said by, as Chava mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, this is the first webinar series. We will be discussing about governance today, but we plan to host at least 3 more webinars on policy alignment, on funding instrument, and also on sustainability and technologies, everything related to nutrient management and nutrients recycling. So these webinars will be prepared after summer and somewhere between September and January 2027. So if you find this session interested and you want to keep contributing to the discussion and participating in the next webinars, you can follow the project and sign up for updates. I'm sending here some links for the project website, our social networks, and also if you wish to join the community of interest in the project and receive firsthand all the news, the advances, and the updates we are sharing. So thank you very much. I wish you a very productive session. And if you have any doubt, we can discuss later. I pass you the floor back, Chava.
Thank you, Marina. Thank you very much for the excellent introduction. So in the next few minutes, I would like to explain what collaborative governance means and why nutrient pollution in particular needs it. My aim is that by the end of the presentation, you can recognize a good governance arrangement. Let's start with the substance itself. Nitrogen and phosphorus are essential. No crop grows without them. And modern food production depends on adding them to the soil. The problem is that only part of what we apply is taken up by the plants, and the rest is lost to water, where it causes algal growth and oxygen-poor dead zones. It is often forgotten that nitrogen moves between water, air, and climate, while phosphorus stays in the soil for decades and also comes from finite mines, so the two need different responses. This figure shows the planetary boundaries, the 9 processes that keep the Earth system stable. The green center that you can see is the safe operating space, and the red wedges show where we have already gone too far. The one marked in the box is biogeochemical flows, which simply means nitrogen and phosphorus, and it is among the most exceeded of all 9. What makes it unusual is that this boundary is driven almost entirely by how we produce food. Researchers call this kind of issue a so-called wicket problem, which means 4 things. There is no single agreed definition, there is no final solution, the effects appear only years or decades later, and it is tied to other problems such as food security and climate. The key word is contested, not merely complicated. And that is the practical reason we talk about governance. No single authority holds all the information, all the money, and all the legitimacy to settle it alone. But what does governance actually mean? So government is the traditional way power is exercised from one center downwards. The term of governance is broader. Power is shared horizontally, and public bodies, businesses, farmers, and civil society decide and act together. I want to be clear that governance does not replace government. The law and enforcement remain. What changes is who takes part in shaping them and in delivering them. If governance is shared, we need a standard for judging whether it is any good. The United Nations lists 8 characteristics, which you see here, from participation and transparency to the rule of law. In practice, these pull against each other a bit. Participation without accountability produces talking shops, and transparency or other values without inclusiveness simply help the strongest voice in the room, let's say. Governance also describes who takes part at each stage of the so-called policy process. So this is how it connects to public policies. The stages run from agenda setting through evaluation, and the implementation is where nutrient policy most often fails. Below, you see the 4 values against which any policy is judged. Collaboration strengthens effectiveness because the measures are designed by the people who must apply them, but it costs time and it makes the rules less uniform. So good design means managing these trade-offs deliberately, not assuming that more participation is always better. Not all pollution is the same, and this distinction decides which tools will work. Point sources, such as wastewater plant or a factory, are few in number and can be measured at the outlet, so permits, limit values, and inspections work well. Diffuse sources are the opposite. Many farms spread across the landscape, strongly affected by the weather, and very hard to attribute to any single actor. Because agriculture is the main diffuse source in most European catchments, this is exactly where governance arrangements make the biggest difference. Nutrient decisions are not taken only by public administration. They are also taken inside companies, for example, fertilizer producers, processors, retailers, where supply chain requirements can reach farms that no inspector will ever visit, for example. And they are taken inside projects which bring useful discipline but end when the funding ends. Each arena contributes something and each has a clear weakness, so none of them is sufficient on its own. When you design an arrangement, you also choose its scope. A holistic approach tries to cover all nutrient issues at once, and it is more effective when it works. An origin-based approach targets one specific source, and it is easier to achieve, easier to manage, and quicker to respond. The good news is that they are not rivals. You can start with a single source and later fold that work into a wider system. Finally, a word of caution about vocabulary. We often use these 5 terms as if they meant the same thing, but they describe quite different arrangements. The only question that really matters is where the decision-making power sits, and only the last one, collaborative governance, genuinely shares it. If we promise partnership and deliver consultation, we spend trust that is very hard to earn back. So what does a working governance model actually need? Basically, it's 6 things that we managed to identify during our work in NenuPhar project: a supportive legislative environment, finance with a payback within about 5 years, real communication between the actors, knowledge that people can reach, a catalyst actor to hold it all together, and visible good practice that others can copy. If you take away only one sentence from this presentation, take the one at the bottom of the slide, set the legal framework nationally, and then design the practical implementation locally for the specific problem together with the people it affects. This brings me to the end. Thank you for your attention. And right away, I'm passing the floor to Mr. Laszlo Alexa, who will introduce to us corporate innovation and capacity building, exemplified by the Proficomp group, Proficomp company from Hungary.
Thank you very much, and thank you also for invitation. I really appreciate to be here and to present you Proficomp as a case study or as an example how to try to grow the bio-waste management within Hungary. And as you will see, maybe that's not only in Hungary, but we have a lot of international activity. So the Proficomp is an old company. So last year we celebrated the 25th century of the company. And we are focusing mainly on biological waste treatment, mainly on composting. We have activities in more than 20 countries already, and we installed and constructed more than 100 waste treatment facilities with different capacities, from the small capacities to the large waste treatment plants. A special case in Proficomp that we are also offsite department of the Hungarian University of Agricultural Sciences. And it means that we have a lot of education activities, a lot of R&D activities. We have 5 colleagues with PhD degrees, so the innovation is a very important part of the company's activities. How we started. So as I mentioned, we are a very old company. This picture is only to show you that really the composting as a passion, we started in 1991 in Austria. Maybe it's interesting that time that was the introduction of separated bio-waste collection in Austria and in Germany as well, which is nowadays, fortunately, that's the European standard to do it. And later on, I did also my PhD and all my studies. And the Proficomp as a company, we started 26 years ago, and we supplied the first technologies in Hungary and later on internationally as well, with a lot of reference facilities. And what I already mentioned, the technologies which we supply, they are complying all international standards. The challenge to do something with bio-waste, which is the largest fraction within municipality solid waste, that is everywhere in the world. Of course, there are different regulations, different governance, but the challenge is everywhere the same. We have to do something with this huge amount of waste. We have to divert it from the landfill. We need recycling there. We were founder member in Hungarian Compost Association, of course, in last century, and we were also founder member in the European Compost Network, the ECN. It was founded in Budapest as well, as you can see, in 2002. And the reason of establishing these organizations were to have a coordinated and a strong lobbying. Because I mentioned that the bio-waste is the largest fraction within MSW, but on the other side, to make it work, so simply to improve the bio-waste recycling, that is a huge issue. The bio-waste is not within the EPR, extended producer responsibility, and not in other systems. So it means that you have to find the economic background also for bio-waste treatment, or you need the regulations, which is nowadays fortunately the case in Europe, that we have the circular economy package, and we have to introduce a mandatory bio-waste collection system. We have activities also in North America, in the US and in Canada, and because of them we are member in these organizations as well. So what I can see, there are a lot of similarities between international organizations. So it means that the lobbying is very important, the communication with the governments, and also the communication and the PR activities and the professional fact sheets and activities and workshops and seminars, etc. These are very important part of the activities of these organizations. We are near Budapest. From the beginning, our idea was to give professional services for the customers. So we have a lot of laboratories. We have special laboratories as well, like, for example, the dynamic olfactometry measuring the odor, the smell. We have different type of reactors, isothermal and adiabatic reactors. We have phytotrons in order to test the compost, the digestate, the different fertilizers. And we have also accreditation for trainings. It means we have short-term trainings, 1 day, and we have 1 week trainings for professional people in order to give them the latest information regarding waste treatment, circular economy, etc. We have R&D, and we have also core business, of course. At the head office, we have the opportunity to have a small insect project, to have a small microalgae. That is something you can see here. In order to use the bio-waste, the agricultural byproducts, organic manure, the digestates, so the different waste, bio-waste and biological degradable streams in order to produce insect protein, chitosan, and we have also big projects with microalgae as well. And of course, that is a complex project because the outputs from, for example, from insect breeding, it can go to aerobic or anaerobic waste treatment. We have also a small biogas facility where we produce biomethane and electricity as well. The core business of the company is the composting and microalgae and insect projects. These are mainly for publication. I don't want to go into details why, that would be a longer presentation. Okay, circular economy legal framework. I think that in Europe we are in a very, very good position compared to other parts of the world because we have already the circular economy projects, and it means that we modified all directives regarding waste treatment. That is something that we already know, that we have to make recycling, not only because of economic point of view, that we have a lot of secondary raw materials, but with the organic we have the problems that during degradation we will produce a huge amount of methane, VOCs of course, and odor, and we will have the problem with leachate. So simple to remove, to divert the bio-waste from the landfills and to produce compost. I think that's the key point in development, that we have a mandatory separated bio-waste collection within Europe. We know that in a practice that is, unfortunately, it's not the case everywhere, but it's already started, and at least we know that that's the future. We have to reduce the landfills, the landfilling below 10%, and we will have a very high recycling rate. So the legal framework is available, we can state, in case of bio-waste treatment. The recent situation in Europe, I don't want to go into details with numbers, so you can find it on the internet. I think that one point is very important, or one message, that we need 2 times more capacities in bio-waste treatment. It is mainly in the countries in eastern and middle part of Europe, but in general we have to double the capacities from the 47 million tons to 90 million tons. So that is a big challenge, and that's maybe as interesting information that in North America we have the same situation, that we need 2 times higher capacities, which is already existing in case of this part of the world. I don't want to go into details with the technology. We have a membrane cover technologies where we can reduce the emission during the process. We have positive aeration, and we have a control system controlling the process with the software. And with these membrane covered solutions, we have an enclosed in-vessel system, but with a low investment and operational cost. But I already mentioned we have an emission reduction higher 90%. The membrane is waterproof, so the water, the outside water, the rain cannot penetrate into the material, but the air can go through, so that is a semi-permeable membrane in this sense. And there is no weather independence, and of course we comply all best available techniques criteria. And which is important, I think, at this slide, that as you can see, the carbon dioxide equivalent emission in case of membrane cover technologies, it's only 12 kilogram per treated tons, and the industrial average is 47 kilogram CO2 equivalents emissions per tons. We have references with all kinds of feedstocks. So we have references not only with bio-waste. I mentioned the bio-waste because that is a huge challenge nowadays. But of course, we have a lot of projects with sewage sludge. And I can mention, I would like to give you the information that, for example, the phosphorus importance, of course, as a nutrient in agriculture, that is also one of the macro elements. which are needed, and the phosphorus we import. So in Europe, we don't have a phosphorus source, we don't have appetite, so we have to import it. And we import the phosphorus fertilizer, we use it, and at the end of the day, it is in the food waste, which we landfill nowadays, or it is in sewage sludge, because during wastewater treatment, of course, we would like to remove the phosphorus from the wastewater. So at the end of the day, it will be sewage sludge. So it means there is a need to use this type of waste and byproduct streams. We have also references with ABP, with slaughterhouse wastes, all kind of other waste streams, and also MSW pretreatment. The emission reduction I already mentioned, and which is also a special case in Proficomp, and that was also very important for us, that the membranes which are used in composting industry in the past, there were EPTFE, so polytetrafluoroethylene, which is a PFAS membrane, of course, containing fluorine. And we developed a PFAS-free membrane cover. I think that's very important, with the same properties. So as you can see, we have a very high reduction in emission. I just would like to highlight, for example, ammonia emission, because that's also very important. I'm sure that you know that 90% of ammonia emission is coming from agriculture. It's coming mainly from manure and fertilizer applications. And with this type of solution, for example, in case of organic manure treatment, converting to compost, we have a very, very low ammonia emission. And also during the compost application, of course, the ammonia emission is also very low, because that is a stabilized material. The nitrogen is in organic bond in case of compost. I think that's also very important to have decentralized and local solutions, what already mentioned in previous presentations. And we have also solutions from very, very small one. Of course, if there is a chance to treat the kitchen waste, the garden waste, the green waste locally, that's the best solution, not to transport it to the composting plant and to buy the compost back later on. And because of them, we developed different type of solutions like breathable drum, breath bin, different type of solutions, as you can see. And also, just to mention one success story of Proficomp, we also won a big award with this project. We started in 2019. That was the first time. The picture we did there at the Sziget Festival. And we will do it also in 2 weeks during Sziget, that we collect all food waste, biodegradable waste there at the festival. And we start also composting there. So there is a demonstration facility. That's very, very important also from educational point of view. We can present that the separated collection has sense if you have a recycling technology afterwards. So it has a huge effect in order to understand the need of separated collection. So a summary, or maybe a few informations. In case of Hungary, simple not to landfill the bio-waste, the biodegradable waste, the sewage sludge, because unfortunately the sewage sludge recultivation, we call it recultivation, in the past that was mainly landfilling. So to produce compost, then we could increase the compost amount. So that is a mistake, that 150,000 hectares we could cover with compost with the amount which we produced. The other important number, I think, that if we use the waste, the biodegradable waste and the byproducts, then we could produce more than 500 million cubic meter biogas, biomethane from the waste and byproducts. I think that's also very important. And that's the strategical target, for example, in case of Hungary. It means that we don't need energy crops in order to cover these needs. And of course, the phosphorus, which is also in your project, it's a key point, that we could have phosphorus recycling 15,000-20,000 tons, which is very important because the total consumption in phosphorus fertilizer in Hungary, that is more or less 90,000 tons. So 20-25 of the phosphorus fertilizer in case of Hungary could be recycled phosphorus. It means that it is not only important from environmental point of view, but it's also from economic point of view. It is a sustainable and feasible project. The second point is that I also mentioned that there are legislation, there are regulations, we have the circular economy package, we have the new directives, so it means that we know what to do. The technologies, the R&D activities, the technology supplier companies, they are on the market. I think that the challenge is, which is very important to establish, that is economic feasibility. So it means that if we have a composting plant, then in order to operate the composting plant, we need a gate fee or tipping fee. That is something somebody have to pay this gate fee. The other point is that the value of compost, you can sell as an average price in Europe nowadays for 10 euros per tons. And the value, the nutrients value of compost, that is 30-40 euros. So it means that nowadays the market is not really, the economic circumstances are not really feasible. And the last comment or point would be the challenge we are facing now, that is the bio-waste separated collection, which is in a starting phase in many countries in the eastern part of Europe. And for this increasing the separated collection and efficiency, we need a lot of education, PR, and good practices. So I think that the whole sector, the biological waste treatment sector, has very, very good opportunities nowadays, but there are huge challenges, and these are economic, these are organizationally, these are education, PR, and good practices as well. So thank you very much for your kind attention. Sorry if I was too long.
No, absolutely not. Thank you very much for the valuable insights into the corporate world. And now, according to the agenda, I'm inviting Berai Kaili and Agnes Bocalon from ACR Plus to give their presentation on the SEACURE project's results in nutrient governance.
Thanks a lot to the colleagues in the NenuPhar project for inviting us, inviting the SEACURE project to present the activities we are currently working on. My name is Agnese Boccalon. I'm a project manager at ACR Plus. ACR Plus is the Association of Cities and Regions for Sustainable Resources Management. We are a European network of public authorities working at local and regional level for the promotion of sustainable management of resources and the promotion of circular economy approaches among our members and in the territories covered by our members. Today, I represent the SEACURE project, and I will give you an introduction of the activities of the project, the work we have done on the governance analysis to implement our activities, and with a focus a bit on the development of the vision papers that are part of the work on governance, with the preliminary results and the upcoming activities. Introducing the project. First of all, why we are developing activities in nutrients pollution. In a recent report of the European Environmental Agency from 2024, there is a confirmation of standstill trend in the ecological status of our water bodies in Europe, and ecological status and chemical status. So in the report, the European Environmental Agency says that there is actually no significant improvement in the status of our water bodies, and that stems from monitoring process that has been initiated with the Water Framework Directive and Directive on nitrates, through which we luckily started to look at what is the impact, among others, of agricultural activities on the water quality of our water systems in Europe. What you see here is a map of dating back to 2009 of the identification of nitrate vulnerable zones in Europe. with, well, 3 different categories on the designated zones by member states, the zones that have been identified within the territories of the member state as vulnerable to nitrates, and then other potential vulnerable zones. So why this map is here? I was looking for an updated map of where are at the moment the nitrates vulnerable zones distributed across Europe. This is the most recent map that I could find, while at the same time there are more recent data on the designation of the area within the member states that are vulnerable to nitrates. And what we see is that there is a distribution that is fairly important for countries like, for example, the Netherlands or Denmark or Romania that have decided to designate the entire extension of the territory of the national level as vulnerable to nitrates. There are other countries within the EU27 area that have decided to define this allocation with a more territorial approach, but that means in general that if we look at the percentage of territory that is covered by areas designated as NVZ, we have important percentages covering from 10 to 70% when not 100% coverage of areas subject to nitrates pollution. That leads to the reason why we decided to design the activities of the SECURE project with the objective of demonstrating, scaling, and replicating solutions for the prevention, reduction, and remediation of nutrients in the Mediterranean Sea basin. The SECURE project has overall 6 strategic objectives. Among them, we want to assess what are the regional actors that are present at territorial level that address nutrients pollution. We want to implement 16 different solutions at TRL level 7 and demonstrate their effectiveness. In doing so, we deploy a multi-criteria assessment strategy to assess the feasibility of upscaling these solutions at a larger territorial level. And we work also on the assessment of the regional innovation enablers that can ensure continuation of activities and investments after the project will close. In doing so, we invest quite a lot of effort in promoting knowledge exchange and dissemination of the activities we are working on. And we look at exploitation routes for upscale in the Mediterranean and beyond. So this is a bit the information related to the project. We started our activities about 2 years ago in September 2024, and we have a 4 years implementation period. We are now in the middle of the implementation of activities. We are operating with a budget of 8.5 million euros through 6 pilot areas distributed in 3 countries. We have 2 pilots in Greece, 2 pilots in Italy, and 2 pilots in Spain. The consortium counts with 25 different partners from 5 countries, and our activities mainly focus on solutions that address prevention, reduction, and remediation of phosphorus and nitrogen in soils and water. That means that our project works at the interface of the mission Oceans and Water and the mission A Soil Deal for Europe, as in the different solutions that we are deploying in the pilots. We address both soil quality, soil health, and water quality. We are working in the land, river, sea continuum, so we are addressing inland, river, and coastal pollution, and we work through different activities that I will show you in the next slides. About our approach and the work plan, we adopt a multi-actor approach where we work on the quadruple helix, attempting to engage, ensuring a continued engagement of research organizations, civil society organizations, public authorities, and the private sector. On the sustainability level, we assess and we provide results on the economic, the environmental, and the social impact produced by the solutions and by the adoption of these solutions. And then within our activities, we also aim at developing a decision support tool for the evaluation of these solutions and the impact generated by them at territorial level. This for the actors active in the pilots, but also for the associated regions that will soon join the activities of our project. We launched at the end of last year a call for associated regions, and we are now in the process of, well, we have already selected them, and they will be soon published on our website. And in these 7 regions that are distributed across Europe, the replication strategies of the activities implemented in SECURE project will be tested and designed. Okay, well, we are working on these different activities through the different work packages of the project that you see here. And this is an overview of the consortium that is implementing the activities. As mentioned before, we are present with the pilots in Spain, Italy, and Greece. And we have within our consortia also organizations like us, ACR Plus, and Proman in Austria that are contributing to the activities of the project beyond the partners that are in the demo sites. So looking at the activities we have performed in terms of governance analysis within SECURE, just to say that for us, the assessment of the governance is a building block for all the other activities that are being implemented, namely the deployment of the solutions in the demo sites, the multi-criteria feasibility assessment, the scale-up, and the replication. So what have we done so far? So we are not yet at the end of the 2nd year of implementation, but what I will walk you through is an overview of the activities we have performed in the part of the definition of the regional context and the definition of the action roadmaps. So we have worked mainly on a stakeholder consultation process combined with an analysis of stock taking of the solution implemented and a regional innovation ecosystem analysis to create vision papers in the demo sites. During this year, towards the end of this year and in the coming years, we will revise the first draft of the vision papers, and then we will use these vision papers and the overall process of analysis for the regional upscaling, the definition of regional upscaling plans. So what are the vision papers? We have created these vision papers for the 6 demos, and they are long-term visions with that define regional goals and pathways for tackling nutrients pollution in the territories where we are operating. What they are meant for? They are meant for defining the priorities identified by the stakeholders and to serve as a basis for developing local or regional policies and strategies for taking action. We already worked on the production of the SWOT analysis to describe the regional innovation ecosystems and on the inventory of past solutions implemented in each of the pilot areas. In terms of how the vision papers are structured, this also reflects our approach in understanding the baseline context, finding solutions, discussing them with the stakeholders, and then moving on towards the use of the solutions that we are testing and potential replication and upscaling. So this is just a general overview of the vision papers. We have a definition of the challenges, describing the place-specific causes of nutrients pollution, what are the risks associated with these challenges in terms of environmental risk, economic risk, human health risk. And as mentioned before, we have this inventory of solutions that have been adopted and developed and financed in the past, and what kind and what degree of regional innovation ecosystems is characterizing each pilot. Within these vision papers, after carrying out the multi-actor stakeholders analysis, we discuss with the stakeholders engaged in the roundtables discussion on who are the organizations that are seen or they have the legal responsibility to lead the process of nutrients management within the basin. And then based on all this input, we have identified a preliminary list of actions that would be able to address the nutrients pollution in the specific cases. So how did we set all these up? We started with the first round of stakeholders roundtables, which aim was to develop these vision papers. We integrated in the discussion with the stakeholders the definition of the causes and effects of the nutrients pollution problem. And then we started the process of analyzing past experiences in addressing nitrates and phosphate pollution, and what type of businesses, investment, financial commitments they have supported the adoption of these measures. What resulted from this analysis is a number of needs that sometimes they were peculiar to each of the demo sites, and sometimes they were just the same across them. For example, in the case of Central Catalonia, where the activities of the demo are focusing more on the reduction and control of nutrients pollution in soils, there is an identification of nutrients recovery from animal manure as one of the main actionable measures to be taken to address the pollution management concerns. Why did we decide to have multiple versions of these vision papers? First of all, because we understand that stakeholders engagement, active stakeholders engagement requires time, requires commitment, and we cannot have all the stakeholders that we want to have in the discussion from the very beginning. So there is a need for continuous engagement and continuous communication of the activities we are performing. For example, this overview of the level of participation in the different roundtables across the pilots is an example of the way we try to identify if we had all the relevant actors from the public sector, from the producers, so the farmers, from the research institute that were at the discussion table for the identification of the activities to be performed. We identified some gaps. We provided feedback to the demo leaders on the gaps we have identified, and there is an iterative process of consultation with stakeholders, extending the breadth of the number and the type of stakeholders engaged in the consultation, and also a revision of the selected approach for nutrients management. So this work on the stakeholder consultation was merged with a stock-taking exercise of past interventions that was done partly with the input from the roundtable discussion and partly as a desk research. And this stock-taking exercise meant to equip the regional stakeholders and the project partners with key insights on the configuration of the technical and institutional responses for nutrients pollution. How was this done? Well, the past solutions have been categorized into three main categories that related to the categories we have identified for our solutions. So prevention, reduction, and remediation. And then 4 key levers have been defined that looked at the entry point of these solutions or measures, past interventions, in terms of regulatory barriers or compliance with regulation at national or EU level, the economic and financial side of it, and also the impact, the part related to policy, development of local strategies and initiatives, and the more local governance part, and the information sharing and knowledge sharing part. So for each of the different demo sites, this stock-taking exercise has been executed. And then we have categorized all the past intervention into these 3 categories of prevention, remediation, and reduction. And we have defined more detailed categories about the type of implemented solutions. So whether they were nature-based or if they were more technological-oriented, whether they were addressing nutrients management more in general, or if they were addressing nutrient management specifically related to soil systems. This is just to give an overview of how the different solutions have been categorized. And finally, the third element is the SWOT analysis that we have done on the regional innovation ecosystems, where for regional innovation ecosystem, we intend the network of stakeholders, institutions, policies, and also infrastructures that are defining the dynamics of pollution management in a given area, and that together they drive innovation and development of solutions to address a specific challenge. This is what analysis we have done it, looking at the strengths and capabilities, of course, the weaknesses and the risks that relate to, for example, a poor implementation of regulation or the absence of financial means to actually enact a strategy or an initiative that was defined, but also looking at the opportunities that emerging technologies or financial incentives would bring to accelerate the process of nutrients management in the given pilots. Here, just some results of how, for example, the strength component of this assessment has been carried out and how it has been assessed through the different pilots. And this was just to tell the 3 basic building blocks that have used for this governance assessment. So as we are in the middle of the implementation of the activities of the project, what is coming up in the next year and next 2 years is second round of workshop for the stakeholders consultation process, which will lead to the definition of an intermediate version of the vision papers together with the stakeholders. And then we have a third round of workshop in 2028 that will lead to the final definition of the vision papers, which will reflect the activities of the nature-based solution and technological solutions that have been adopted within the pilots, but also the upscale potential once the project will be finalized. This is all from our side, and I'm open to answer questions during the discussion session. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we're going on with Paula Costa Dome from Beta Technological Center to introduce the Spanish governance case study.
My name is Paula Costa, and I represent the Beta Center and also the NenuPhar project in this webinar. And I'm going to explain the Ebro Basin case study, so mainly what kind of governance activities were done in the Ebro Basin case study within the NenuPhar project. So here is more or less the content of the presentation. So first, I'm going to introduce a little bit the governance activities within the NenuPhar project. Then I'll explain the Spanish governance context. And then I'll also explain 2 main activities that were done, which is a stakeholder mapping and the community of members, which is the one where I will make the focus. And finally, I will do a brief diagnosis of how this community of members was implemented, and also what kind of challenges and opportunities we found, and some recommendations to consider. So first of all, the NenuPhar governance activities. So within the NenuPhar project, we aim to establish a network governance approach in order to design and test novel governance models to decrease emissions of the nutrients of nitrogen and phosphorus and improve their recovery. So in order to do that, we developed several activities that are also interconnected with each other, and that establish the base to design the community of members. So first of all, we wanted to analyze the current governance solutions in each partner country, which will give the governance context to the community of members. Then we also wanted to identify the key stakeholders that will be present in the community of members. Then another activity that was done was the design of a monitoring framework, which will establish some governance key performance indicators that will be used to assess the implementation and also the performance of the community of members. And then the idea is that these community members will give us some outcomes, but also we will use the successful solutions identified during the governance analysis in order to define a document with best practices in terms of governance practices in each country. So that will be the main activities. So now I'm going to focus on the community of members. So first of all, what is a community of members? It is a structured collaborative network of stakeholders. But what kind of stakeholders? So it is the quadruple helix key stakeholders. So basically actors that are from these main groups, which is academia, civil society, public institution, and private enterprises. Then the idea of the community of members is to facilitate and enhance governance processes to support the transition to circular economy. And therefore, it is a platform for stakeholders' engagement, knowledge share, and coordination action. So overall, a community of members is a group of stakeholders with a high level of interest in the project, in this case in the NenuPhar project, that will form a critical group to gather site needs, validate governance solutions, and also nutrient management practices. So the main objective of the community of members is to establish the foundation for the discussion and consolidation of a novel governance structure to mitigate nutrient pollution in the different partner countries. And in the case of Spain, this will evolve into what we are calling Mesa de Concertación, which at the end is just bringing together these key stakeholders to promote dialogue and collaborative solutions for the implementation of sustainable practices for nutrient management. So now I'm going to explain a little bit the Spanish governance context. First of all, we need to consider some characteristics of the Ebro River Basin. Here in this map, we can see that it's located in the northeast of Spain. And regarding the demo site, it is located between two regions, which is Aragon and Catalonia. And these two regions have similar nitrate pollution pressure. It is also important to consider that these two regions have high agricultural sector, which leads to high production of manure and slurry. And if it's not properly managed, it could result into nutrient pollution. Another aspect to consider is that these two regions have different administrative structure and also different agricultural policies, which could result in barriers for the development and implementation of nutrient management strategies. Therefore, it is very important to do a comprehensive analysis of the governance, but also the stakeholders that are involved in nutrient management in these two regions. So to do that, we first did a governance analysis of the nutrient and the water management in Aragon and Catalonia and in Spain in general. And as we can see, this is a very complex governance structure with a multi-level governance, where we can see that there are actors involved in a national level, also in regional level, but also local level and super regional. I'm going to explain a little bit what main actors you can find in each level. So basically, in the national level, we can find the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Food, which defines the policy framework. But then in the regional levels, we have the governments of Catalonia and Aragon, which are the ones that are responsible for implementing this policy framework. Then again, in the regional level, we also have the departments of agriculture in each region, in Aragon and Catalonia, which collaborate together with local officers and agricultural unions to manage the nutrient policies. Then in the supranational level, we have the water management, which is coordinated by the Hydrographic Confederation. And finally, in the local level, we can find different stakeholders, which are, for example, academia stakeholders here in yellow, agricultural unions, user communities in orange, and also the private sector in blue. So as we can see, it's a very complex multi-level governance structure, and it is also important to understand that not all the stakeholders interact with each other. So that's something to consider. So now that we know how the governance system works in Spain for nutrient and water management, we wanted to identify the key stakeholders that will be involved in this community of members. So to do that, we first did a general stakeholder analysis where we identified a total of 55 stakeholders with this representation for each group. But then we also wanted to narrow it down. And to do that, we did a more specific community of members stakeholder analysis where we identified a total of 29. And these stakeholders, they should have a high level of interest in the project. So here are the ones that we identified. Each color represents a different group of stakeholders. And then you can also find the actors that have a high influence in water and nutrient management, which present a red dot. So these ones here are the ones that interest more to be present in the community of members. And finally, I will present the results of the community of members. So in this table, we can find the different community of members that have been done in the Ebro demo site and that will happen in the future. So far we have done 2 community of members. The first one was held in February 2025, and the second one was done in March 2026 with this number of participants and this representation. But the main objective of this community of members was different. So the first one, the objective was to lay the foundation for the consultation table and also to define the structure, the priorities, and the key challenges to be identified. And then the second one was built on the initial community of member outcomes. So the idea was to get the results from the first community of members and work further on them by, for example, reviewing governance developments, exploring circular business models, and addressing the key challenges and opportunities identified. And then we will do a third community of member, which will be in collaboration with the GREENHOOD project, and all will explain better in the next presentation. This community of member will be done at the beginning of November, and the idea is to consolidate the regional community of members and also to transfer the knowledge to the GREENHOOD project so that everything that has happened in the NenuPhar project is not lost, but will continue with this project and in the future will be consolidated without the need of a project. That's the idea. So these are the main results from the first community of members, where we identified several challenges in current governance and nutrient management. So here you can see some general challenges that were identified, but also challenges for each stakeholder group, especially in terms of engagement. I'm not going to go much in detail on this, but just for you to have an idea of the type of challenges that were identified. Then we also identify strategic lines and challenges to be discussed. So the main lines identified were environmental, economic, social, and technological. And for each of them, again, we identified these challenges to be discussed or be covered in the next community of members. And as I said, the idea of the second community of members was to work on the results of the first one and develop them further. So here we can see that for each of the lines identified, we selected those challenges that were more important, and we thought that should be prioritized to work on the next community of members. And also we identified some opportunities regarding nutrient management practices in the Ebro Basin, like, for example, the valorization of byproduct resources, increased use of organic fertilizers, development of circular business models, etc. And finally, in this second community of members, we also identified some barriers for the implementation of nutrient management practices, like, for example, complex regulatory frameworks, high capital operational cost, limited market development. And based on these barriers, we also define some strategic priorities that should be addressed in the future, like, for example, adapt the regulatory frameworks, promote adoption of circular practices, strengthen the collaboration between the different stakeholders, etc. Those are the results of the community of members so far. And now I will do a bit of analysis of what challenges we have encountered, opportunities, and the final recommendations. So regarding opportunities, there was a presence of CAI, which is one of the main local actors that gave us a lot of support to get the contacts and also to bring the key stakeholders to the community of members, because this local actor is in contact with key stakeholders from the agricultural sector. And so thanks to them, we could have good representation of these stakeholders, and we could have very good results in the different sessions. Then another important thing is the proximity between regions, which also facilitates the cooperation between the different stakeholders, which probably without these stakeholders, they work independently in each region. So here, the fact that this demo site was between the two regions allows for a better collaboration between them. And then the success of the community of members has established the foundation to create the future Mesa de Concertación. The idea is that this Mesa de Concertación will be done without the need of the support of this kind of projects. And finally, some challenges and recommendations. So one of the challenges that we have found is that most of the stakeholders are not used to work in dynamic activities. So here it's very important to have the facilitator role to extract key information from all the stakeholders. Then there is also low representation from the private sector. And here it is very important because we should engage with this, with the private sector, but also highlight the value of the community of members session and show them that what will be the benefit for their business, because otherwise they are not willing to participate in these activities. Then there are also different needs and requirements among the regions. So here it is very important to integrate the policies and actions based on the river basin and not per region. Well, there are difficulties to find common objectives sometimes between stakeholders. So it is also important to identify those differences and similarities between the stakeholders and how they interfere with their needs. And finally, one last challenge is that sometimes user communities tend to blame public authorities. So here it is very important to provide tools to facilitate interaction and cooperation between them, and not just blaming, but show them that they have to collaborate and work together to find solutions. So thank you very much. That's the end of the presentation. And yeah, if you have any questions, we can discuss later.
Thank you very much, Paula, and all. The floor is yours. Introducing governance practices established by the GREENHOOD project.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for the invitation. As Saba mentioned, I'm Manuel Nieto. I'm working in the governance part of the GREENHOOD project. And as Saba says, there are some similarities between the two projects. So for us, this is the most important thing to connect and seeking a long-term governance in the Ebro Basin, connecting this first NenuPhar project with the GREENHOOD project. So in this presentation, I will talk about what we are doing in the project GREENHOOD, what are our objectives in the area of governance, and the type of governance we are searching for. And perhaps the most interesting things to us is that I will show how we are trying to connect these two projects in the Ebro region concretely. We are trying to connect the projects by doing different actions, and mainly with this community of members that Paula talked about. And then I will explain some activities we are trying to do or just doing at the moment. At first, a general introduction of the projects, of the project GREENHOOD is also a Horizon project, and thematically it aligns a lot with NenuPhar. Both projects tackle the problem of excess of nitrogen and phosphorus in Europe in different parts. As you are seeing, we are working in the Catalan and Aragon region, in the central Catalonia and Aragon region, but also in Belgium, Netherlands, and Finland and Norway. And we are working in this nutrient balance, but both integrating the policy framework and the governance part with this technological innovation part. Also, the GREENHOOD project is working with agriculture, and other different sectors, and it tried to manage the full nutrient cycle in all its complexity, connecting different steps on the supply chain. So it has an integrative, or it tried to has an integrative point of view. And to do this, we have used the knowledge generated also in the NenuPhar project. So it's very important, the connection between the two sister projects. You can see here a small map of the regions and the main areas we are working on Catalonia and Aragon. We are mainly work with livestock waste technologies and denitrification, MBAs on wastewater treatment, etc. In Netherlands and Belgium, they are focusing on intensive livestock farming and NBS on water solutions. Also in Finland, agriculture and phosphorus in the Baltic Sea, and in Norway, mainly in the aquaculture topic or area. So in the more concrete governance aspect, the way we are trying to apply this governance approach that you have talked about, we are trying to do by these different activities. We have done stakeholder mappings and governance diagnosis that I think that on the SEACURE project, they have shown a little bit how they are doing. So in the NenuPhar, in GREENHOOD, we are trying to do different also stakeholders mapping. And we are currently in the second phase in this governance part. And we are building shared knowledge and creating a space for exchange across stakeholder in all the different pilots. We are doing this through the governance labs and also the paying schemes that I'm going to explain later. And we are also looking to create in this governance lab that we are doing a policy sandbox. That is an experimental testing environment where we can put into practice innovations that we could believe that generate a better governance. This includes structures and spaces, as the community of members. And the main thing is to bring actors together and to generate a better governance of nutrient balance. So, and then in the next part, or in the final part of the GREENHOOD project, in this governance part, we will try to this transfer of knowledge to the policy sector and to generate that change on the policies. So what type of governance we are trying to generate? So we are basically trying to change from an approach of management and a policies approach to a governance approach that it has got two different parts, the multi-stakeholder approach and the integrative approach. So we are trying to generate this non-vertical way to generate governance and to generate more sustainable ecosystem, talking about nutrients. And in these two levels, in the multi-stakeholder level, it includes actors. It's called the quadruple helix. It can be public authorities, research, industry, and civil society, but also in an integrative way. So it means that it takes into account all the processes and dynamics that are part of this nutrient balance, not only the policies. We are talking about the water governance also, the land uses, the influence of livestock production, and all of this. So here is a small scheme of the two scenarios. One scenario is more the management approach, we can say, a vertical thing where the people are a passive actor on this politics on this area. And the other one, what are we searching for, is a more governance approach. And more in concrete, how we are trying to bridge this NenuPhar and GREENHOOD project. So we are trying to have this community of members in the time and do a more sustainable in terms of time space of collaboration between different stakeholders. Some challenges that we have are to avoid the stakeholder fatigue, because we know that there are a lot of different projects in the region, so we don't want to generate this amount of actions, because it can be a good factor to the engage of the different actors. We are trying to address different starting points, because we know that some stakeholders are more in the topics we are talking about, and some others are news in this one. So this will be important. And then we will try to bridge this administrative difference that Paula told about. And then we see opportunities. We think that this opportunity to create a governance space that can be useful for the different stakeholders. We want to maintain this engagement, not only in the duration of the NenuPhar project, but to think in a sustainable or in an ecosystem timescales frame. And then I will talk about the concrete actions that we are doing in the Ebro River Basin in this GREENHOOD project. At first, we will have these stakeholder questionnaires and the part of the co-design of the governance schemes. Then we have the governance labs and the pairing schemes that we are doing at the moment. Then the policy sandbox that we are going to try in this project. And at the last part, we will do this policy uptake. At first, we did this type of questionnaires to know how the governance is going in the region. But also we have all the information for different projects we are doing in the region, and we could start for this more advanced knowledge of the moment of the region, of the context of the region. Then with this map that Paula showed us of the governance system that we have on the NenuPhar project on the Ebro Basin, we try to search and to look for some solutions or improvements on these governance schemes, and we produce different schemes to try to work on it. And then the governance labs that we have started on May of this year, we have done the first part in an online part. We introduced this NenuPhar and GREENHOOD convergence, and we talk with the different stakeholders and tell them that we are trying to maintain this space of the tabla de concertación or mesa de concertación or a community of members, and we are explaining the stakeholder that we are trying to continue this between the GREENHOOD project. So we saw some results on the context of the project, but I think that I'm not going into depth because we are running out of time. And then we will have this second session of the governance lab that it will be a shared session with the NenuPhar project. So we will do this community of members of NenuPhar and governance lab together, and we will try to do some different things to change what in NenuPhar we or the researchers know that can be improved in this new project. So we will try to have more civil society engaged in the project. We will introduce an integrative perspective, and we will talk about water governance and water cycles. And we will have some examples, some researchers, experts in this topic, or some experience as the Andalusian Social Water Roundtable, that they are going to talk about some experience, some spaces of governance that has generated good output in different areas. And also to apply or to try to apply the things we detect that can be applied to the Ebro context. And then we will have this pairing scheme part, and we call pairing scheme to this dialogue between researchers and policymakers mainly, but all actors can be involved in that. And we are talking about a bidirectional way, not only to transfer knowledge from the academia to the policy sector, but only to know as researchers what are the reality of the territory and the complexity of the policy making process. We will have these activities on the pairing scheme. We will try to generate engagement between this science and policymakers just to know what are the problems and what can be the research that can be done on this project, on these topics. And then we will have the policy sandbox. Now, in this governance lab, we will try to design also what are the policies and the changes on the governance that we could introduce and try it in a small level, then to know if it is scalable or not. And then we will have this part of policy recommendation and documents to the policymakers, just with evidence on this topic on how the regulation can be changed. I think that's all.
Thank you very much, all.
Thank you very much.
So I would now open the floor for questions or comments or remarks on the presentations and the topics we had, if you wish. Marina.
Yes, well, just one question for the colleagues from the other two projects that are working on governance and with a stakeholders group. Did you have the chance to make international groups work together, like to join stakeholders from different countries in the same discussion? Or you're working only regionally?
Agnes.
Maybe I can try to provide an answer. So just to mention that I gave a bit of an overview, but I am not the person that was in the facilitation of this stakeholders dialogue. But what we try to do in the different demos, it was mainly to focus on the regional actors. So we didn't have at this moment, because we only had one roundtable and the second is upcoming, we didn't have interaction with actors outside of the basin of where the demos were implemented.
Hello?
And for our part, I think it's hard to connect because of the language. That's obvious. But we are trying to hold sessions before or just after the General Assemblies that I think that in NenuPhar too.
Yeah,
and
it's kind
this,
of the same.
Yeah, that can connect the stakeholders of one place, the place where the General Assembly is doing, and just to have this experience of the other regions in that. But we didn't think in a like complex online event with the different stakeholders because we think it will be complicated to homogenize.
Yeah, I fully agree. It's something that in NenuPhar we are experiencing. Paula can say it. So whenever we try to exchange with other countries on the results of we are obtaining in one of the community of members, bringing them together is almost impossible because the language barrier, exactly. So what we are doing is having interregional workshops in which instead of merging the members, let's say, of each community of members, we are there from the consortium with representative of the local community of members, and the consortium members are the ones that are there to share the lessons learned we are having in each of the different regions. Because in our case, for example, let's say merging farmers from Latvia and Spain and Hungary, it was something that we really couldn't, reach. So we are gathering all the information and from the consortium trying to share it with them. Something that the farmers, for example, from the Ebro Basin, they are mentioning this as super valuable output of the project for them is bringing these discussions to Europe. It's something that they highlight a lot. It's really relevant for them to that all the results and all the discussions we are having, even though it might be at a local level in the Ebro Basin, sharing it with stakeholders from other regions and ultimately with the European Commission representatives is something that they appreciate a lot. So it's something that we are, we are having basically the same issue, but we are trying to upscale all these results to the different stakeholders and other policymakers even ultimately.
And yes, please.
So it's more an observation than a question, because within SECURE, as I explained, we also have a pilot in Central Catalonia, and then I think it can be worth connecting the meetings you will have as NenuPhar and GREENHOOD in November with the roundtable that we are planning to run by the end of the year. So I will try to put you in contact with, or maybe you know them already, the demo leaders of Central Catalonia, because I think there are several elements in common, because we are also trying to address pollution from manure, and I think there can be forces that can be joined across the project.
Sure, Agnes. Thank you very much for the proposal, and absolutely, we are super open to join forces. In the end, as Anol has mentioned in his presentation, when we try to reach the same type of stakeholders from the same region, from different projects, it causes fatigue in the end for them, and it's better to join forces, because in the end we are all looking for the same objective. So definitely, we stay in touch, of course.
I think the idea is for this project that are working in same or similar topics, that can be a continuation or a continuity on the governance space that are generated, because we don't have this multi-stakeholder administration or govern or space officially or institutionally, but with the collaboration of this project, I think we can generate something similar to that is very important.
Thank you very much. I think it is now time to wrap up our meeting. So I just would like to say that I'm extremely thankful to all the presenters who provided us with very useful insights into the realm of their activities and interconnections with the nutrient issue. I'm asking everyone to check out the project materials of all the 3 projects, and stay tuned for the upcoming parts of the webinar series within the NenuPhar project.